Yo, what is good, dev guys? Welcome back. So in the last video, we set up our collision sphere, which we will use as the collision object inside of the scene for when we overlap our pickups. And this will enable us to collect our pickups whenever we give the command. So in this video, we're going to work on that actual logic where we set up a function to actually collect these batteries or pickups. So come down here inside your battery collector.h, and in this protected section, we want to go ahead and create a function called void, and I got sticky keys. So we're going to go void collect pickups, and it takes no parameters. And we're also going to put a U function wrapper on top of it, so that if we want, we can call this in Blueprint. So make it Blueprint callable. And what this is going to do is a few things once we generate this implementation. So the first thing we're going to do is create an array to put our overlapped actors in. Once we create that array, we're going to fill that array by getting the overlapped actors inside of our collection sphere. After we fill that array, we're going to iterate over that array. So we're going to do a for loop. So we're going to iterate over the array and cast the actor we find to a pickup, and cast the actor we find to a pickup. And what casting is basically saying, hey, I have this object here. Is it this type? That's all casting does. It takes an object that you have, it takes a source, and it takes an object that you're using as a checker against that source and saying, I have this object that I want to check against, and I have this object that I found. Are they the same type? And that cast will either fail or it'll either succeed. And the variable that you set will either get filled with a null pointer or it will get filled with the type that was found. So we're going to iterate over that array and cast the actor that we found to a pickup. Then we want to go ahead and say if that actor found is valid and it's active and it's not about to be destroyed, then we're going to call the onCollect function on it. And we're also going to call the set pickup active function, because once we collect it, and we want to go ahead and make it inactive. So that's what this function is going to do. Is going to create we're going to create an array that we're going to put our overlap actors that we find in. Then once we get that array, we're going to iterate over it and see if the actors that we're overlapping equal the type that we're actually trying to collect. If they do, we're going to call the collect function on it, and then we're going to call the set pickup as active function on it. So let's go ahead and type the code that equals out these pseudocode lines here. So create an array. Okay, so in Unreal, the array is kind of different from what you're used to. You're probably used to array, or you're probably used to saying something like game object, and you say it is bullets or something, and it's an array. And you do something like this. If I can find the right brackets. Yeah, you'll do something like that. But in Unreal or in Unity, you create a list. That's more of what this is. It's comparable to a dictionary or a list in Unity. In Unreal, we call it a T array. This is just an array. That's just what it's called. And then in here, we put the type of array that we want. And that type is of a actor. And it's going to be of a actor pointer. Now, sometimes you'll have a T array of a certain object that won't be a pointer. Sometimes it will be a pointer. It just depends on what you're using this T array for. And as you use pointers and T arrays more, you'll start to figure out where you need it and where you don't. With what we're doing here, our particular function to get all the overlapped actors from our sphere returns a T array actor pointer. So we have to, if we're going to fill an array with a type, we have to make sure that the type we create is the same type as the one we're going to fill. So call this our overlapped actors. And that is us creating that T array. So now we're going to fill that T array by getting the overlap actors in our collection sphere. So what that is going to our collection sphere. What did I call it? Let's see, it's called collision sphere. Okay, so inside a collision sphere, if we hit the dot, or if you don't have any C++ tools, you have to create the arrow yourself. In Rider, if you type dot and it's a pointer, it'll automatically create the arrow for you. So we want to use the get overlapping actors. That's the function we want to call. And you see this function takes in an out parameter. And out parameters are kind of confusing at the beginning. But basically what they are is a return. Like it's basically a way to return multiple things in one function. So this function, say this function returned a float right here. Like if this returned a float, if I wanted to return a vector, or if I wanted this to output a vector from somewhere, I would type in something like f vector. And this symbol here, the and symbol inside of this parameters, means that it's going to be an out parameter. This means the address of. This just means that somewhere in memory, something is created and we are going to get the address of that. So I'd say f vector and call this out location or something like that. And then whenever inside the function, I'd go ahead and pass in this to a already created f vector. I'd say that out location equals this and whatnot. Let's change this back to void. And we want to go ahead and say our overlap actors is the array that we want to output to. And all this does is collects all the actors inside the sphere, puts them in an array, and then outputs that array to this variable here. So this variable is getting filled by this function. So that is us filling the array with our overlap actors. And now we want to iterate over the array and do some things in there. And all of these things go inside of the for loop. So I'm gonna go ahead and create the for loop. And we want to say int, I like to go lowercase index, and you see it automatically renamed all my indexes for me. Rider, thank you. And we want to see if our index is smaller than overlapped actors.num. And this is very similar to .length or .count, I believe is the syntax in C#. This is how you get the length of an array in C++. And then we want to actually invert this. We want to go ++ index. And inside of this array, we want to, and I'm gonna move this up here. Inside this array, we want to cast, whoops, that needs to be cut, put in here. We want to cast to the actor. So I haven't done that yet. So we want to cast to a pickup base. And it's going to be a pointer. And we're going to call this our overlapped actor, singular. And we're going to set this equal to a cast. And we're going to cast to the same type because we want to make sure that this here is the same type that we're trying to create it. Basically saying if you overlap an actor that is not of this type, then you can't fill this variable with the type because we've kind of said you can only fill this variable with this pickup base type. And here we're going to give it the source. Our source is our overlapped actors at the index that we are currently at. So this will fill this variable here with an overlapped actor as long as that overlapped actor is of this type here. If not, it will fill it null. That's basically what that does. So now we can run our if check. So we can say if, and I'm gonna put this under here. Say if our overlapped actor is valid. All you have to do inside of C++ is saying, all you have to do is say if this overlap actor, and it kind of converts this to a Boolean, meaning that if it's null, it'll be false. If it's filled, if it has data, it'll be true. This is a valid check right here. So if we say if overlap actor and overlapped actor dot is pickup active. Remember, we wrote this public function to access the protected Boolean B is active. And this one is another function that is part of the A actor class. It says is pending kill. And I think the correct one to use is pending kill pending. Returns true if the actor has begun the destruction process. This is set to true in uworld. And then this one is checks if the pending kill flag is set to see if it is dead, but the memory is still valid. So I'm going to use is pending kill. So if all of these check out to be true, we want to go ahead and say overlapped actor, and we want to call our on collected function on pickup collected. And then we want to go ahead and call overlapped actor and dot set pickup is active, and we want to pass in false. And this will iterate over all the actors. So this will run on each actor separately. Go ahead. This goes on top of here. So I'm going to hit save, and I am going to go ahead and run the editor. Actually, I'm going to build this to see if we get any errors. We actually need to do one more thing before we run the editor. Okay, that build was fine. So now we need to set up a way to actually collect. We have this function, but there's nothing activating this function. And the way that we're going to do that is by binding an input to this function. And in Unreal, if you use the templates, this function will be created automatically. This is a function that is a part of pawn classes because pawns can have input, and character is a child of pawn. So this setup player input component function is an override. If you look at it, it's an override. So it's always present in a character or pawn class. And here we can bind an action that we give a name to, which we'll do that in the editor. And then we can bind it to a function on this character or on this class. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this jump one here and paste it down here. And I want to change this F name to collected or collect. And it's going to happen when the key is pressed, and it's going to search this object, and it's going to get pointed to the address of this function here, the collect pickups function. So whenever we press the button that we bind to this action here, it'll look on this character here, or this type, or this class, and it'll look for a function with this name here, and it'll run that function for us. So now I'm gonna go ahead and run the editor, and let's go ahead and set up our input. Inside of our editor, if you don't have project settings already open, just go to edit project settings, and this window will open. So let's go down to where it says engine and input. And here is where we can add action mappings. We can also go to our project folder and look for the input INI file, and we can manually type all this stuff in, but Unreal does it very generously with this UI based or GUI based approach. So in action mappings, we want to go ahead and add a new one, and we want to call this the same thing we called it in C++, because it'll look for this F name right here. And for us, we can go ahead and click this button, and whatever key you press on your keyboard will be filled into this value here. So I filled it to C. So that means, and I also made a change in my test. I went ahead and set this spawn volume to 500 by 500 by 32. That way the area that the random spawn point gets selected is a little bit smaller and condensed, so more objects spawn by each other. But I'm gonna go ahead and test this. And before I do, I should show you guys in my character class, because you won't have this. So if I go to my blueprint, my third person character class here, open up the full blueprint editor. For my collision sphere, which is that object that we attached to the character and attached it to the root component, which is this capsule component, there is a flag here called hidden in game. I went ahead and set that to false. Normally it'll be true. I set it to false so we could go ahead and see when I press play here how big our collision sphere actually is. So if I come over here to where these bad boys are dropping, I can get them in my collision sphere, and I can go ahead and press C, and you'll see that we're not actually collecting anything. So something's happening. Nothing popped up in our log either. So let me go back here and make sure we got our collect and our collect pickups function. So we created our overlap actor. If our overlap actor is here, okay. This is where we messed up. So we want to negate this. We want to say if basically this means our overlap actor is about to be destroyed. So we want to only do this if our overlap actor is not about to be destroyed. So go ahead and put a exclamation point to negate this Boolean here. And we want to check if our overlap actor is not about to be destroyed. If that is true, then we can pick up our actor. So I'm gonna go ahead and compile in the editor. And that was compiled correctly. So I'm gonna hit play now. If I go in here and test this bad boy out, let a few of them fall. Let's try to collect these two right here. There, oh, no, that one's not in my collision sphere. But if I press C here, you'll see that all three of those got deleted. And if you look at the log here, and if you don't have this log, you can go to Window, Output Log, and it'll pop up this log down here at the bottom. But if you look at the log, it'll say we have picked up battery BP battery C _2, 0, and 5. And Remember, we wrote that base functionality in the pickup base class, and it's still calling that same functionality in the child class, which is the battery class. So let's go look at that again. Make sure that there wasn't a fluke. So I'll press C here, it collects that one. Press C there, it collects that one. Press C there, collects it. And pretty much the base functionality for collecting things is set up. Now we want to actually give these a purpose, because these batteries are going to charge your player, give them power, and you'll have to run around and collect these, and you'll get points for collecting them until you run out of power and your character dies. So in the next videos, we'll be setting up that functionality. So if you're ready for that, go ahead and join me in the next ones, and I'll see you in there. Peace.